This is episode 3 of Toe in the Rubber. I'm Devon Alsman, and this is
Johnny Clumpy.
Today we're going to talk about a quick recap of the wildcard series, the weekend games, and then we'll preview today's games. Johnny, you have any thoughts before we get started?
It was a fun week of baseball, a lot of fun, exciting games. I have some opinions on the Mets. They might be the best late-inning offense I've ever watched at this point. I mean, the ability with clutch hit after clutch hit, but we'll get to that later when we start talking about the wild card series and yesterday's games and other stuff like that.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions, you can leave it down below in the chat as well. And also, me and Johnny are right now suffering, both coughing right now, so if we cough during the show,
please bear with us.
Yeah. So the first game that happened was the Tigers vs. Guardians of this weekend. And we saw the Tariq Skubal not start for the Tigers, which was very surprising because now he's only going to start for today's game. And that's going to result in him not pitching for Game 5. And now the Tigers are down 1-0 already. And the Guardians won the game 7-0 because they scored 5 runs in the first inning. And just Tigers never came back. And it's a big surprise they didn't go to Tariq Skubal Game 1.
See, I get it, but you also can't kill your ace by the second series. He did pitch on Wednesday, it was Tuesday. So he pitched on Tuesday, which is plenty of break, but you can still get him for Game 2 and then Game 5 if it goes there. So maybe they're saving him for that. But I do understand it a little bit because you don't really want to have you don't want to kill his arm this early in his career.
But you need to win.
That is true. But I understand A.J. Hinch's decision to not go with him in Game 1.
Because you look at, the Marlins last year, they're nowhere close to making playoffs anymore. You look at, and the Tigers could be similar to that. So you would think they want to win when they're in the playoffs.
I get that, but this team is very young. Yeah, so I think the mentality around the Tigers is we have a bunch of young guys and we can do this again. Our core is very young, so I think they believe as a whole they can do it again. Now it's not always the case. Some young teams fail to reach that prominence, like the Mariners a couple of years ago, haven't been back since 2022 when they made it. But I do believe that this team is good enough that they can repeat this in the future, especially behind Tariq Skubal.
And they weren't even supposed to make it. The Twins just collapsed, and the Tigers were able to squeeze in. They beat the Astros 2-0 in the wild card due to Skubal pitching a masterful Game 1. And then Game 2, the offense showed up late with, I believe, Andy Ibanez came in, pinch hit, roped a 3-run double against Josh Hader to win them the game, and that's how the Tigers are now facing the Guardians.
Yeah, they have a good offense. I think they believe in themselves enough that it's not like they live and die by Tariq Skubal. I think that's what it comes down to. I think they believe in the rest of the team enough that they can get it done.
Yeah, and then we got, what was the next game of that day? It was
the Royals and the Yankees. But before we get there, I do want to talk about the Guardians in Game 1 behind Tanner Bybee, who was the starter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Tanner.
Yeah.
In the 4 2/3 is kind of when I was watching. He was great. I mean, making your first postseason career start, and he only pitched 4 2/3 innings, but he would just go on tears. He struck out a whole side, but he didn't strike out the side he let a base runner on, but he struck out 3 batters in the inning. He was lights out for those 4 2/3 innings. And in a game that I guess you do need, in a game that you didn't really need a starting pitcher to be elite, they had a guy who was great for 4 2/3 innings and made sure the Tigers didn't really have a chance. But I did want to give him credit because he pitched a masterful Game 1.
Yeah, it was interesting that Bybee didn't get the win because he didn't go 5 innings. It was surprising that they decided to pull him before he had the chance. And it's kind of unfortunate.
But pitcher wins and losses are useless for the most part. Not a great
But
stat.
as a first career start...
Yeah, you do want to get it in the postseason. I get it, but it's not like it's the make or break stat that everyone like that everyone used
The
to think it was.
efficiency, yeah. I mean, like Zach Wheeler. We'll talk about that game in a bit. He went 7 masterful innings, did not get the win.
Yeah, so like that's where it's like when you have like the best performance of like you can have like a nine inning game where you let up 1 run and you can end up with a loss. So it's like pitcher wins and losses. But it would have been cool for him to get a win in his first career postseason start.
Yeah, for the Royals Yankees, that the next game that we'll talk about, the Royals played the Orioles to get to play the Yankees. Corbin Burns, 8 innings, 1 run, and the Orioles still lost that game.
Yeah, because the Orioles offense has not been able to hit. They have not really showed up so far in this core's 2 postseason appearances. They haven't been able to hit, and it's harsh because I really like the Orioles. I think they're a fun team. Like Gunnar Henderson's one of my favorite players to watch. I think he's so much fun. Anthony Santander is one of the most underrated players in baseball. He was near 40 home runs this year. If he didn't get it, I don't remember, but he was floating around 40, and nobody really talks about it. Adley's great. Corbin Burns is good. It's a fun team to watch, and it is unlucky that they just haven't been able to show up in the postseason because I think they'd be a fun team to watch make a run. Yeah. And Baltimore kind of deserves it, as they've struggled over the past decade.
Baltimore, their offense just fell off in the second half. I know Rutschman hit like around 200.
Yeah.
And it was just not good. Gunnar struggled. He had maybe 5 home runs. Like, he did not hit many home runs afterwards.
The signs were there that this team was going to struggle in the postseason, and they made my postseason predictions look bad. So,
yeah. So now the Royals versus Yankees. Only 1 game has been played. As today, they'll play the second game because the NL played yesterday. The AL will play today. We had the Yankees win 6-5. It was a back-and-forth game. There was 5 lead changes throughout this game, but the Yankees were able to prevail due to
Alex
Verdugo, a player that the Yankees fans have not been
fond of.
They've been sick of him pretty much throughout the year, and he was able to come up clutch with Jazz Chisholm on second base and drove him in for the 6th run, and that's what the Yankees needed. Clay Holmes also threw 1 2/3 scoreless in that game.
So it was a fun game overall, and we've had a couple of these this postseason, a lot of back and forth, and this is what makes postseason baseball so much fun to watch. It's a very fun and beautiful, electric energy every time any team goes out to play. And that's why it's my favorite second favorite postseason to watch. It's so much energy everywhere. It is a very fun time, and this game was like proof of it. It wasn't the home runs necessarily. It was back and forth though on hits, and we saw another back and forth off home run game this weekend, which we'll get to later. But this game was just like how many teams can play the small ball single and get a run in, and the Yankees prevailed. And it's funny talking about Verdugo. Yankees fans have very heavily disliked him. I see a lot of Yankees Twitter because they have a lot of fans. Not that I want to be on Yankees Twitter, but it's like the funny tweets about him always grounding out. It's like it'll be like when I'm in a ground out competition and my opponent is Alex Verdugo. They have not liked him, but here he comes through in front of the harshest fans to play in front of in probably the world. He came through and gave them the game-winning run.
Yankees fans, they hate on players that struggle. They've hated on Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
They've hated on Garrett Cole.
Joey Gallo, even though he was very bad in New York, but it was kind of because of them.
And then speaking of Garrett Cole, he struggled this game. He only got through 5 innings, let up 7 hits, and let up 3 runs, which I know.
He wasn't Garrett Cole, but I mean, it's the playoffs, and it wasn't bad. Like, it's obviously not what you want from the guy who you consider your ace, but it's not like it wasn't a bad outing. Like, if you get this in the playoffs, like imagine Tanner Bybee did this, we'd be like, oh, Tanner Bybee was good.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's all about expectation, and obviously from Garrett Cole, who's your ace, you want him to be going 7 shutout, save your bullpen for the next couple games in the series. Not the best performance, obviously, but definitely not the worst thing they've seen out of a Yankees pitcher, especially in the postseason. He's struggled before.
What didn't help is Anthony Volpe had that throwing error as well. So Garrett Cole had 4 runs, only 3 earned, and Tim Hill had 0 earned runs but 1 run. So Volpe as well, who's a very solid shortstop.
And a very good defender.
Had that wild throw, which resulted in a problem. But Luke Weaver as well has been very good in September, coming into October, as the Yankees closer because Clay Holmes has
had struggled so much earlier in the year.
11 blown saves, and is also the reason the Tigers have come around when they were able to walk it off against Clay Holmes, and that it was the Little League, I believe, Little League Classic.
Or Classic, yeah.
Game, and Luke Weaver had faced 4 batters, where he got 4 outs, 3 of them with strikeouts.
Yeah. He was very good, and that's exactly what the Yankees want to see in a series that if the Royals offense can keep playing like this, they're going to need the bullpen to really step up. And it is like, as you talked about, Garrett Cole only going 5 innings hurts that for the rest of the series because they can't use, like, how many times are you going to get Luke Weaver for an inning and a third? Now, he did get the day break, and Holmes got the day break because they didn't play today, so you didn't get back-to-back days, and then they'll have another day off to travel. But I think they have to be happy with the bullpen and the outlook towards Game 2 tonight.
And then they had the off day today, and today they'll be playing the second game of the series. It'll be Cole Reagans versus Carlos Rodon.
It's going to be a fun one. Reagans is great.
Both lefties.
Yeah, Rendon has been touchy, but
better than last year.
Better than last year. I expect a fun matchup in the Bronx tonight.
Yeah, you got both lefties, so you won't see many lefties in the lineup probably, and that mixed with they're playing at Yankee Stadium for this, and then they'll travel to the Royals. So then the that right field porch won't be as effective for the start.
There was a couple in Game 1 that was like there is a unicorn home run where it was only a home run at Yankee Stadium. There's a few of those where there's like a very short 340-foot home run.
But with the 2 lefties starting, you won't see many lefties. You'll see Soto in there, obviously.
Because you have to play him.
But otherwise, there won't be many lefties. Rizzo, who would start but is injured as well. So now there won't be many lefties in this to go and face the Carlos Rodon and Reagans.
And speaking of tonight's game, the Guardians and Tigers already also played, but we didn't mention who's starting for them. Do you remember?
Oh, it is Tariq Skubal for Game 2 versus Matthew Boyd. Both were teammates for the Tigers at one point as well. And it will be kind of and both are great friends, I've heard through news and stuff. And it'll be a good start. Boyd's had a pretty good rebound season with the Guardians after coming back from Tommy John. And it'll be an interesting start for the Guardians.
It looks good, but if I bet on the game, put a lot of money on the Tigers with Tariq Skubal because there's not a lot of teams in the major leagues that can hit that guy.
Matthew Boyd's been good, but you could throw Shane Bieber if he was healthy, and I'd still take Tariq Skubal.
Yeah,
the only pitcher that I
Chris
would
Sale is the only one
that's
that
the only
it's like,
one that I
it's
would
like an
think.
argument, and it's still I might still lean Tariq Skubal
because Tigers' offense has been better than the Braves' offense, as one team is still in the playoffs and the other one isn't.
That is true. That's true.
Then we got the Phillies and Mets
over the weekend.
They
played some fun games. It was
the series is tied 1-1. It is an off day today for the NL. And do you want to go ahead? I know you've talked about the Mets earlier today and how they've came back. Go ahead. You can go ahead and talk about that.
So yeah, they've had some crazy, like if you look at the box scores of these games, they put up 6 runs in the last 2 innings in Game 1 to win Game 1 6-2. So they put up 5 in the 8th, and they were losing when they did it. So it's like this team, and they've done it all postseason. They did it against the Mets. They did it against the Brewers. That's how they got here. In the doubleheader against the Braves in Game 1, they put up, 6? They put up 6 across the final
decent amount
3 innings to end up stealing the game from the Braves, and then clinching their postseason spot. Now they obviously lost Game 2 to the Braves, so the Braves got in. But then Game 1 against the Brewers, they just outright won it. But it was a good game by them. They played great.
And then Game 2.
And then Game 3, Pete Alonso in the 9th.
In the 9th inning against Devin Williams.
Yeah, had the most like estimated wins or win probability added home run since 2005 that was a non-walk-off home run in MLB history. Like since all the way back to 2005, had the most clutch hit that we've seen in the ninth inning, just adding to the clutch reputation of this Mets team. And then in Game 1, they go and do it again and score 6 runs in the ninth. So that's how they ended up winning Game 1. And then we'll talk about the other Game 1 and then still get to their Game 2 because they did something similar in Game 2.
Yeah. The Brewers as well were able to take one game compared to the other 3 teams that got swept.
Yeah.
The Brewers were the 3 seed, so you would hope they would at least win a game. Both of us are Cubs fans. We dislike the Brewers, but there's good talking points about this Brewers team, especially without Christian Yelich.
Yeah, well, I predicted them to win the series, so the Mets made me look bad. The Royals made me look bad, and the Tigers made me look bad. I was only right about the Padres, but I'm happy. Like, I wanted the Tigers to win that series as, like, the baseball fan that I am. I just have seen the story too many times with the Astros. I was like, they're going to pull some devil magic that they've been doing over the last 7 years and somehow get back to a ALCS. But
the Astros are starting to run out, it seems. Dynasty's starting to slow down, while the Tigers' dynasty is starting to start.
Well, it might not be a dynasty. They haven't won a ring yet, so. Well,
they haven't, but you got Trixcabal. You still have him for a couple more years. You'll assumptually re-sign him and keep building from there. They have Jackson Joby. Is it Joby or Job?
We can say Joby.
One of the two who's projected to be really good. He's on the postseason team. He struggled against the Astros, but it was a rookie against the Astros.
One of the most experienced playoff teams probably ever. So
coming out, and he came out of the bullpen, which he's not used to, as he's a starter, and will be throughout going into next year. But now we got the Phillies and Mets. Mets were able to take Game 1 over Philly due to Zach Wheeler pitched 7 masterful innings, but had 4 walks and 7 strikeouts, which results in high pitch counts. And after 111 pitches, which is his postseason high, career high, and he's pitching postseason a lot. Yeah.
Especially in the last couple years with
Phillies, and then he was with the Mets. I don't know if he pitched during that.
No, they weren't.
And Zach Wheeler had to be taken out, which went to the Phillies bullpen, who had 2 All-Stars, who both came in the 8th inning and blew it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a discredit to the Phillies bullpen or it's just the Mets offense is that good. I mean, we'll talk to it. Like, there was a home run yesterday that was crazy to watch with the pitch location on it. So we'll get to that. Unless we just do we want to cover both games and then get to the Padres-Dodgers?
Yeah.
Okay, so they I think this Mets offense is just very clutch. I think that's the only way to put it. And then Game 2 was another great example of the offense being clutch. Now they took a 2-0 lead on a Mark Vientos homer. Then the Phillies and then they got another homer later on, and then the Phillies tied it at 3 apiece. And then in the 7th inning, the Mets took the lead again. Then the Phillies took the lead back in the 8th inning to go up 6-4. And then Mark Vientos was up again and hit a game-tying homer on a pitch that was at his helmet, basically.
Yeah.
Somehow managed to hit that out to tie the game in the top of the 9th. I don't know if it's the Phillies bullpen is struggling, but considering they've done this for 3 series now, and they did it against Devon Williams, who's one of the best closers in baseball, I think this Mets offense just has a clutch gene. I don't know how else to describe it. They were just that good in the late game situation. But as it was only tied going into the bottom of the 9th, the Phillies did answer. Nick Castellanos walked it off in one of the best postseason games maybe ever. It was a great back and forth. The walk-off in Philly was electric. I mean, all you can imagine how electric Philly is just on a regular day. The walk-off, it was loud, and it was a fun baseball play to watch.
Yeah, it was a great game, and we saw Phillies for Game 1 where only Kyle Schwarber had that leadoff homer when he led the regular season with 15 leadoff homers. He hit another one,
which is his fifth in the postseason.
And he's been very good. But the problem was he was the only offense for the Phillies game 1.
Yeah, they had another one on in the ninth, but
it did not
6-1,
matter
so.
at all. That run was against a Mets pitcher they just put in.
Yeah, but Mark Vientos actually made history yesterday. He's the youngest player in National League history to record 3 extra base hits in a postseason game. It might have been tied. I don't know if Jackson Merrill did that, but speaking about the Mets, do you think this is one of the best teams in Mets history?
I don't know the most about the Mets and about their history. I know they've had some great players like Tom Seaver and stuff, but I don't know much about their World Series runs and stuff.
They have a World Series, and if this team manages to get to the World Series or win the World Series, then I feel like you could say that, especially with their performance, in the last half of the year and down the stretch. And if they can keep doing this in the playoffs, then excuse me. If they can keep doing this clutch hitting in the playoffs, it might be one of the best teams ever. Because I don't know how else you're gonna. If they can continue this clutch performance, I don't know how you could call this not the best team in a team's history to be this clutch time after time, to constantly do this in late innings of games. Instead of just doing it across the whole game, they're putting up all their runs in the last 3 innings, and it's been very impressive to watch.
Yeah, it's very impressive that the Mets are able to come back, and this was supposed to be a comeback. This was supposed to be a retool season for the Mets. They weren't supposed to make the playoffs. They weren't supposed to contend, and it seemed like that at the start of the season. And then Jose Iglesias just woke this team up, it seemed, or Grimace, or just a combination of a bunch of stuff, just woke this team up, and they're here in the playoffs, tied in the series of 1-1 with the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, they're going toe-to-toe with the second-best team in the NL. It's been very impressive to watch.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that the Mets are here and they're scoring this many runs in the postseason.
Yeah, it's a fun team to watch. So, as you talked about Kyle Schwarber, this gives us something to talk about because the Cubs haven't had a lot of news lately. So we don't have a lot for Around the Ivy as a segment. But as you talked about, Kyle Schwarber has been great in Philly. And he was great in Washington the year after the Cubs let him go. So we have a question from our chat that why did the Cubs let Kyle Schwarber walk in free agency?
So I know it was not a walk in free agency. It was in 2020. He had a struggling year, and they released him. It was not a walk-in free agency. The Cubs just decided he was not good and released him.
Well,
because it was 2020, because he was a rookie in 2016, correct?
2015. He played
2015. 2020, that's 5 years. That was not a walk year for free agency. Okay. So they let him go, and it's very frustrating as a Cubs fan that they let him go.
I feel like anybody could. The move still baffles. Every time Kyle Schwarber does anything positive ever, and we talked to you, or I talked to you earlier about being on Yankees Twitter. I'm obviously on Cubs Twitter because I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah.
Every time he does anything, all of Cubs Twitter is I can't believe we just let this guy go.
It's very frustrating. We could have traded him in the 21 season.
Yeah, along with the fire sale.
Along with the fire sale.
Because he's a great player. But
he would have been traded probably with the fire sale. But just in general, letting him leave for absolutely nothing is very frustrating as a Cubs fan and very sad. I like the Phillies due to him being on this team. He is one of my favorite players to watch, and I love his power, and I think it's very interesting with his on-base skills as well.
Yeah. And thank you, chat, for the questions. You've had a couple of them.
Yeah, thank you for the Mets and the Cubs stuff as well, with the Cubs as well, with Mike Napoli sadly being fired, which is unfortunate.
He seems like a cool clubhouse guy, and he's got World Series experience as he was there in 2016 against the Cubs with the Indians at the time. But we got one more series to catch up on, the Padres and the Dodgers. The Padres swept the Braves in pretty dominant fashion. The Braves' offense didn't really do much, and they got offense all around from everybody. But Game 1 was another pretty fun game. The Padres roughed up Yamamoto, taking a 3-0 lead in the first, and then Shohei Ohtani gave a mean bat flip and tied the game in the second inning because, dude, is that guy fun to watch. And I know you don't like Shohei Ohtani, but I don't get it because I don't know how you can't love this guy.
I don't dislike Ohtani. I dislike the fact that he is so good, he takes attention from everything else. He's too good.
Yeah, but we're watching, like, the greatest player ever, and the most talented player ever in the sport. We're seeing him in lifetime.
I know, but you might as well just the next 9 years of MVPs, just give it to him at this point.
Good. He deserves it.
But no one's going to get it.
I'm fine with that. He's that good. We're watching, like, a Barry Bonds-esque dominance from a guy again, and we didn't get to experience Barry Bonds, and all I see about Barry Bonds is I'm a very big Barry Bonds fan. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame and is also the best player in baseball history. I think the steroids is very overblown, and it's not even sorry, that's the wrong person. But I just don't think he gets too harsh treatment. And Shohei Ohtani is like another dominant run. He hasn't been as like dominant statistically, but because he pitches and hits at such an elite level, he's that good. But going back to game one of the Dodgers series, and the Padres took the lead right back. But then over the rest of the game, the Dodgers were able to put up more runs and take game one 7-5. And then last night, the Padres just routed them off the back of a lot of homers. It was home run after home run after home run. Fernando Tatis had 2. Jackson Merrill was the youngest player to ever hit a home run in Padres history. He went back-to-back with Xander Bogaerts, and Kyle Higashioka hit another home run, as he's been very good in the postseason. So the Padres and Dodgers are tied at 2-2, 1-1 as they go to their off day today.
Yeah, and you were talking about Tatis, who missed some time due to suspension and injury, and the suspension was when he was injured. He took
steroids to
help recover, and that resulted in him being suspended.
So we haven't seen him in the postseason
since
2020. So, and I love the guy. I mean, I have his jersey. He's my favorite player in MLB. I love watching him play, and I'm so happy that he's lighting it up in the postseason so far.
Yeah, it's great. Ohtani, I don't hate him. I just think he draws attention from great players like Tatis. Because when you look at this team, Freddie Freeman's the 4th guy you talk about on the Dodgers, behind Ohtani, Betts, Kershaw, and Freeman. Freeman's 4th, and Freeman is probably a Hall of Famer. So it's just kind of aggravating when Freddie Freeman's the 4th guy you talk about.
So, and then the Padres, after going up by so much, had stuff thrown on the field at them yesterday. That was the other big news. And then more, just some small little news stories. Mike Napoli got fired. Terry Francona has been hired as the Reds manager, which was very interesting because he retired last year after being the Guardians manager for such a long time. And we all congratulated him and thought his career was done for good and just let the guy rest. But he's back for a different Ohio team.
Yeah, now when the Guardians play the Reds for the Ohio series,
that'll be a fun thing to look for.
Be a bring back of Francona, and Buster Posey was signed as the Jed Hoyer of the Giants, pretty much, the head of baseball operations. And I think this will be a huge impact for the Giants. And I think there's 4 teams in the NL West that you need to worry about coming into next year.
Yeah. So, that's...
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens between now and next Monday. I think the NLDS and ALDS will finish up by then.
We'll definitely have series. I don't think all these series go to 5 games, but
yeah, the Dodgers and Padres won, or the Phillies and Mets won.
But I don't expect all 4.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens from now to then, and we'll go ahead and keep updated. We have a football game Friday that we'll be broadcasting. Yeah. We'll be joined with Brody, and we'll talk about that as we'll talk about football. Yeah. And we'll be on air for that, and we'll see you guys then.
Yeah. So, on to the next episode.
We'll see you on episode 4 of Toe in the Rubber, and this was episode 3.